Sam Darnold and the Seattle Seahawks host JJ McCarthy, Justin Jefferson, and the Minnesota Vikings in a huge NFC showdown. This is going to be a great game. High-powered offensive attacks. Now, the Minnesota Vikings, I say high-powered because that is their ceiling. That's what they can be when this offense operates efficiently. When they run the football well and JJ McCarthy is accurate, the biggest thing with McCarthy, with his lack of starts, is accuracy and stacking positive performances after positive performances. You got to get this guy to play more consistent. Now, that's something Sam Darnold has done a lot better the last 2 seasons. We get the not so much a revenge game. I think that Minnesota and Sam Darnold, parted on good terms, but Sam Darnold gets to stick it to his other team, and the Minnesota Vikings get a big look at their quarterback from a season ago, and we kind of decide who made the right decisions. Did the Vikings make the right decision keeping JJ McCarthy as their starting quarterback and moving on from Darnold, or did Seattle make an ultimately massive move in getting their quarterback of the future in Darnold? Well, I'll tell you this much. This is going to be some great wide receiver play. Justin Jefferson and Jaxon Smith-Njigba arguably have cases to be the best wide receiver in the league in their own right. Justin Jefferson obviously doing it at a very high level for several years, and JSN exploding onto the scene this season. He's been statistically the best wide receiver in the league. Got to see him get into the box just a little bit more. That's going to come. But this Seattle Seahawks team is a bona fide Super Bowl contender. I still absolutely believe that, despite the loss to the Los Angeles Rams a couple of weeks ago. Now, I got to let you know, I'm recording this video before the Seattle Seahawks game this upcoming week and the Minnesota Viking game that they have this week against the Green Bay Packers. Now, I think that that's important to tell you because I don't currently have any updates, right? I can't tell you what Tennessee did against Seattle, things moving in the right direction, as well as injuries. So I do apologize on that. The scheduling of this with travel for me around the holiday, I had to get this video and this preview up so that you guys could watch this before the game and still get this preview out there so that we can get prepared for this game. So in this matchup, Seattle's offense against that Minnesota Viking defense, I really think that Brian Flores has to, at some point, tail a little bit back on the pressure in one of these games. It will not be this one. He's going to look at that Los Angeles Ram pass rush and say, I'm going to dial up the pressure. Sam Darnold, when there's pressure right in his face, I think that we can force some takeaways from him, and that is one of the best ways that you're going to get a win against the Seattle Seahawks are going to be turnovers. In any game in the NFL, you take the football away and you don't turn it over. That's a good recipe for success. This is a very tall task for this Viking team. Going on the road, Lumen Field, afternoon kick. That stadium's going to be on fire. This is the number 3 scoring offense in the NFL. The Seahawks score about 30 points a game, and this Minnesota Viking defense has been good. They just haven't fully been able to stay healthy in all levels, offensively, really, and defensively. But I'm looking at guys like Andrew Van Ginkel, the youngster in Dallas Turner, SEC Defensive Player of the Year 2 seasons ago. I need someone to step up in this game on that Minnesota defense to slow down this Seattle pass rush. We're going to expect that Brian Flores turns up the dial of the heat, gets after Sam Darnold. But what does that open up? Something that Seattle can do to counteract that is the underneath passing game. JSN, I would expect that the average yard run is a little bit lower in this game. Just getting the football out of Darnold's hands quickly and accurately will be the key here. If you can get the ball to JSN in space and Rashid Shaheed, I mean, it's the same exact thing. I wouldn't expect that the Seattle offense is going to come up with a game plan that's saying, all right, we're going to try and fully push the ball down the field at all times. Not going to be a lot of time to throw. You don't have more than 3 seconds when Brian Flores dials up 6-7 man pressures and is getting after you. So that allows for this Seahawks offense, which really is balanced. That's why they're number 6 in the league as of the recording of this in offensive yards per game. 366 yards a game that they put up. And they have really only struggled in one category this year because their defense has been great. No doubt a top 5 defense in the league. But the turnover differential, some of Sam Darnold's turnovers against the Rams and their not getting a whole lot of fumbles. They've taken away through the facet of interceptions decently well, top 10 with 9 picks on the season. But this team is -7 in the league in turnover differential, and the Minnesota Vikings are -9. I know turnovers are coming, whether it's McCarthy, who threw 2 picks against the Chicago Bears recently, or it's Sam Darnold. There's going to be a quarterback that turns the football over. The question is who, and in what manner does that impact this game? The Rams could not put Seattle away because they couldn't take full advantage of the takeaways. The Seahawks held tough, and I think that really speaks to the level of caliber the Seattle team could be when they are mistake-free. They would have beaten the Rams if they didn't turn the football over. There's no doubt about that. Minnesota, we would have beaten the Bears if they didn't turn the football over a couple of times. Had a drive going at the end there in the second half. In other games, it's just been an interception in each of the 5 games that I've seen so far from JJ McCarthy. That fully needs to stop. Cannot have a propensity to turn the football over, especially with talent like Addison and Jefferson. Look, Seattle adding Shaheed adds an element to this offense that is that explosive deep play threat, but still, they don't have the power that Addison, Hockenson, Jefferson bring to their offense. So I'm expecting Seattle, a lot of underneath throws, quick, efficient pass game for them to dial up a counterattack to that Brian Flores scheme to really try and force the envelope and force some takeaways. Now, the Seattle defense against the Minnesota Viking offense, this is a Seattle team that gets pressure with 4 better than any other team in the league. 32 sacks on the season. That is the 4th best in the NFL. They get after the quarterback. They have monsters up front. And frankly, I don't know if there is a better front 4 in the league. There's some pretty dang good ones with Philadelphia, who the Vikings just gave a tough test a few weeks ago. Up front there, they're really good in the middle. But I look a little bit behind that to where that they're very strong. In the back end and that secondary, one of my favorite players in the NFL now, the rookie Nick Emmanwori. I've talked about him consistently on this show and been very excited about his role moving across the entire field. One of those athletic freaks that goes everywhere. And then there's Woolen and Devon Witherspoon, another one of my favorite guys. And this defense gets all the attention up front, but I think that they might even be better in the back end in that secondary with the versatility. All of those guys tackle extremely well. They cover with speed. They can run with you. There's an advantage to this Seattle Seahawks secondary is that when they have a good front 4 and they get pressure, they're not going to have to cover as long. Most teams against Minnesota, they have to be getting pressure on the quarterback easily. That's something that Seattle does at a very high level, a top 5 team in the league at getting after the quarterback. The question is a couple of guys on defense like Tyrese Knight, Kobe Bryant. I talked about the offense like Gray Zabel, his health for the long term. That's a key injury to that Seattle offensive line, how they hold up. But I talk about a guy like Gray Zabel, offensive line. The Minnesota Vikings have really struggled offensively up front. That front 5 has not been good the entire season. You go back to the end of last year and them not being a good unit, giving up all those sacks to the Rams, and then not playing all that great in key moments against the Lions in that winner-take-all. Winner gets the 1 seed, loser gets the 5 seed, and is on the road for 3 games in the postseason type matchup. This cannot continue offensively for Minnesota if they want any crack of not just this year of making a change, because realistically, the Vikings are not going to be a playoff team. That loss to Chicago all but probably ended their season. I don't know what the result against the Packers is. I wish I did, but win or lose, it puts an onus on this game. You lose to Seattle, your season's done. So you're looking at those 2 essentially must-win games. That loss to the Bears, heartbreaking. Really had them pinned back an opportunity, and they get that big return from Duvernay that sets up the field goal from 48 yards that you thought might miss, and then Cairo Santos, the ball stays within that left upright. For Minnesota to pull this off offensively, you would usually think it has to be through the air, but because of the Seahawks' effective front 4 play, I am looking at their rushing attack. JJ McCarthy has dialed back the rushing attempts in recent weeks, and then I look at his game against Detroit, his best game he's maybe ever played in his entire life. You go back to any level against a really good quality Detroit team on the road where they're almost unbeatable, very tough team to beat at Ford Field on what I call the fast track on that turf with all those weapons. Is McCarthy was mobile in that game. He was moving around. His accuracy pinpoints and taking advantage of a Detroit secondary that had been banged up. But again, he was sacked 5 times in that game. There's no hiding around it. Minnesota got a short field, I believe 1 or 2 times, and McCarthy took advantage. And Chicago not turning the football over, Minnesota did. That's the game. That's the game right there. So this game, I'm not at all going to come out here and say Seattle's the better team. This thing goes simply down the middle. Seattle's going to win. Without a doubt, I believe that takeaways have an impact, but I am leaning towards, after seeing the Seattle Seahawks struggle like that against the Rams and still be that close in the game, I think that the Seattle team gets the win against Minnesota, that Minnesota has to run the football well. I am sort of trending towards the direction of knowing what McCarthy is, which is going to be a guy that's probably somewhere between the 12th to 24th, 25, 6 best quarterback in the NFL. I don't ever think he's going to be a top 8, top 10 guy. It's going to take 2, 3 more seasons in developing with Kevin O'Connell. The offensive line getting a whole lot better. There could be potential for him to play into those teens, in the high teens next season. There's no doubt about it. But from what we've seen from McCarthy so far, it's unrealistic to just assume he comes out here against a very good Seattle team and lights the world on fire, especially on the road, despite whatever he's able to do against the Green Bay Packers, a game that, which obviously you'll have already seen. There's an advantage on that one. Wish I could know the way he looks against Rashawn Gary and Micah Parsons, but this is an incredibly important game. Seattle looking to stay and keep pace with the LA Rams. What they have to do is stay within a game. Try and stay in a game within LA by the time that they play them on that Thursday night, December 18th, a week before Christmas. If they can stay within one game of them and put themselves in a position where it's a win and they tie up LA and they can sort of control their destiny the rest of the stretch. Remember, the Rams still got to play the Lions on that schedule. Seattle's schedule still looks to be very manageable. They're going to have a game before the Colts that week, so that's going to really where it comes down to deciding the division. Seattle plays the Colts and then the Rams at home. The Rams will be playing the Lions at home and then Seattle on the road. Very easily, I would say 95% chance that's the stretch of 2 games, 5 days that will ultimately decide the NFC West. And you're looking at a home game, and probably the number 2 seed in the conference is likely going to be coming out of the NFC West. The winner will, you would imagine, be 12-5 or 13-4 once we get to that week. And then the Minnesota Vikings, look, if they run the table, without a doubt, they've got a shot. It starts with a tough game against Seattle on the road. As tough a place to play when they're good, obviously, but when they're like this, I believe that it makes a lot of Seattle Seahawks incredibly proud. They are most likely amazed that their defense is this good this quickly. They probably imagined they could be a top 10 unit. I don't know if they imagined that they could be in the conversation to be the best defense in the NFL. So I am going to predict that the Seattle Seahawks do come up with a win in this game. I don't think that's any bit of a shocker. I will take it in a one-score fashion, though. 29-23. I've liked what I've seen from McCarthy at times. He's got stretches. That drive against Chicago to give him the lead. That fourth quarter against Chicago. The whole game, for the most part, against Detroit. I've liked what I've seen for stretches. Can he do it against Seattle? I see an up-and-down game on this one, and Seattle Seahawks with what looks to be a comfortable win, and then I believe a late surge can come from Minnesota towards the end of this one. This is a Viking team that's quite tough to kill. If they do fall into a position where Jordan Mason can't get the run game going and Aaron Jones, and they can't get push up front, which likely will be the case against this front from from Seattle. Demarcus Lawrence and Leonard Williams up front. They're likely not going to get a whole lot of push. And Byron Murphy's been spectacular. The kid out of Texas from a couple years ago, just a monster in the middle. So that is likely what we're looking at. But Minnesota, where their strength is on the perimeter of this offense. And if they get behind, they do have an ability to come back and throw and push the football down the field. So 29-23, let me know down below in the comments who you think wins this game. Am I wrong? Am I right? I want to hear from you all. Please enjoy your Thanksgiving. Wishing you all a happy holiday and safe travels and enjoying some great football. Thanksgiving divisional clashes, Packers, Lions, and then Bears, Eagles, and then we'll have all the games this upcoming Sunday. So excited for that one. Appreciate you all for watching. If you haven't already, subscribe for more Blitz the Blender content. I'm Josh Blender. I make NFL and college content weekly, getting you set and ready for these huge matchups. It's exciting. We got the college football playoff coming right up, conference championship games, as well as the NFL playoffs coming right after the holidays there. So thank you so much for watching. Enjoy your holiday, and I'll see you next time.
Best player in college football.
That Georgia and Ohio State game, New Year's Eve, is going to be a classic.
Josh Blender, hi everybody, I'm Josh Blender.
To the 40, 35, 30, Espinosa to the 20.